There was a toothbrush in my car. I don't use a toothbrush in my car. I never have. I brush in the bathroom like a normal human being. But this one, bright green handle, soft bristles, wet, was sitting in my center console, next to my sunglasses and an unopened packet of gum. And I know for a fact it wasn't there yesterday. My wife, Tess, left for her solo week 2 nights ago. Said she needed space to mentally declutter, whatever that means. She took her yoga mat, her journal, her favorite fleece hoodie, and drove off to a rental cabin 3 hours upstate. I didn't argue. I just said okay. I needed to pick up dog food this morning, and I grabbed her car because mine was low on gas. She never locks it. Still smells like vanilla and hairspray inside. Still has that cracked iPhone charger I keep telling her to replace. And then, boom, the toothbrush. The thing is, Tess never keeps a toothbrush in the car either. And she never buys green. That might sound ridiculous to you, but when you've been married 6 years, you know someone's toothbrush color. Hers is always pink. Every single time. We've argued about it before. She thinks green looks medical. Her word, not mine. So why is there a wet green toothbrush in her console? Why is it still warm from use? Why is there exactly one long, dark hair curled around the handle, when Tess is a blonde? I didn't call her. I didn't text. I just sat in the driver's seat with the engine off for a solid 30 minutes, staring at that toothbrush like it was some kind of alien artifact. My hands were sweating. I couldn't breathe right. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I opened the glove box. I wish I hadn't. Inside was a receipt. Not just any receipt. A printed guest folio from the Silver Pines Cabin Resort. Tess told me she booked a private unit. 1 queen bed, remote location. A place to reconnect with herself. But the receipt said, cabin number 4, 2 guests. King bed. Check-in, 2 nights ago. Check-out, not yet. And guess what name was listed second under the guests section? Micah. Yeah, that Micah. Her co-worker. The one with the pretentious tattoos and the guitar he can't play. The one she told me was basically married to his art. The one she laughed about when I asked if they ever hung out alone. Apparently, now they do. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't leave a note. I didn't even change out of the coffee-stained hoodie I'd slept in. I just took my keys, the receipt, and that stupid green toothbrush and got in my car. My car, not hers. The cabin resort was 3 hours and 12 minutes away, according to maps. I didn't stop once. Not for gas, not for food, not even to breathe properly. Just white-knuckled it the whole way with one question pounding in my head. What the hell is she doing? It wasn't even the idea of her cheating that was making my hands shake. It was how calm she had been when she left. How peaceful. Like she'd already decided something and just forgot to inform me. Like I was this outdated part of her life she was slowly deleting. When I got to the cabin resort, it didn't look anything like the pictures she'd shown me. Less spiritual getaway, more murder documentary setting. Overgrown gravel road, crooked signage, and 5 wood cabins that looked like they'd collapse if you leaned too hard on the doors. I parked behind the main office. There was no one at the front desk. No bell to ring. Just a coffee mug full of pens and a guest log, open to a page with exactly 2 names scribbled in black ink. Tess McAllister and Micah K., cabin number 4. I walked out without saying a word and made my way down the path toward it. That's when I noticed something weird. Her car wasn't there. Cabin number 4 had a car parked out front, but it wasn't her silver Honda. It was a black Jeep Wrangler. Mud splattered, with a cracked taillight and an air freshener shaped like a skull. Definitely not Tess's vibe. I stood in front of that cabin for 5 full minutes, staring at the door, listening, hoping to hear something. A voice, music, laughter, anything. But it was dead quiet. Eventually, I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. The kind of knock you don't do unless you're ready for a confrontation. Still nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. Then, I swear I'm not making this up, I walked around the back and found the sliding glass door wide open. Just open, like they'd left in a hurry, or hadn't expected anyone to come looking. I stepped inside. Cabin number 4 was small. 1 room, king bed, fireplace, kitchenette. Messy, but not trashy. There were 2 coffee mugs in the sink. One still half full. A pair of boots by the door. A man's jacket on the chair. And on the bed, Tess's journal. Not hidden. Not zipped away. Just sitting there like it had been dropped mid-sentence. I opened it. The first few pages were the usual self-help nonsense. goals, manifestations, sketches of trees. Then, maybe halfway through, I found something that made my stomach cave in on itself. A list, titled in her perfect handwriting, "What I want from Micah that Garrett can't give me." There were 6 bullet points: fire, risk, chaos, uncertainty, obsession, freedom. I dropped the journal. I backed away from it like it had bitten me. My mouth was dry, but my face was soaked with sweat. I'd come here expecting to find some evidence, a hint of betrayal. But this wasn't a hint. This was a confession. And still, somehow, things were about to get worse. Because when I turned to leave, I heard footsteps behind the cabin. Heavy ones. 2 sets. The footsteps stopped the second I moved. I don't know how to explain it, but they didn't sound casual, not like a couple strolling back from a hike. They were heavy, deliberate, and synchronized in that weird way that makes your skin crawl before your brain understands why. I crouched by the corner of the cabin and peeked out through the back window, just enough to see 2 shadows moving past the trees. Neither of them matched Tess's height. One was way too tall, and the other, almost limping. They weren't headed toward cabin 4. They were circling it. I ducked. There was no reason for anyone to be walking around back here unless they knew someone had broken in, or unless they'd been watching. I realized in that moment I didn't actually know who was supposed to be in this cabin. The Jeep wasn't Tess's. The clothes weren't Micah's style. The journal was hers, yes, but that didn't mean she'd been here with Micah. And that's when the first real crack of dread hit me. What if she was never with Micah to begin with? I'd taken one stupid clue, a name on a receipt, and built an entire story around it. Maybe she wasn't cheating with him. Maybe it was someone else. Or maybe she wasn't cheating at all. Maybe this was something much worse. I stepped back into the cabin, scanned it again. The place looked staged. Too neat for 2 people staying there for 3 days. No phone chargers. No food in the fridge. No bags. Just her journal and 2 coffee cups. Like it was set up for someone to find. My gut screamed at me to leave, but my brain, the part that still believed in logic, needed answers. I grabbed her journal again and flipped to the back, hoping for more lists, more honesty. Instead, I found a torn-out page. The bottom half was still stuck to the binding, and all I could make out was the ending of a sentence. If he finds this, I want him to know it wasn't an accident. I dropped it like it was burning. Outside, I heard a car door slam. Then another. I ran to the window. The 2 men were getting into the Jeep. Not slowly, not casually, but like they were pissed. One of them looked up just before he got into the passenger seat. His face was bruised. Not like a fight, like something worse. Something desperate. He saw me. I know he did. But he didn't say anything. Just climbed in and they drove off, kicking up dust as they peeled away from the cabin. I stood in the doorway, frozen. Not sure if I'd just escaped something or missed it entirely. I called Tess for the first time since she left. No answer. I texted her. "We need to talk. Now." I'm at the cabin. I saw the list. "What's going on?" "Delivered. Read." No reply. Then, a full minute later, just 3 words appeared. "You weren't supposed to." I stared at that message. "You weren't supposed to," for longer than I care to admit. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't angry. It was something colder, more resigned, like she had accepted a consequence I hadn't even discovered yet. My first instinct was to call again, demand answers, scream until she cracked. But I didn't. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want confirmation that the person I'd been sleeping beside for 6 years could lie this well. So I just got in my car and drove. The 3-hour drive back felt longer than the trip up, somehow. The roads looked different. Every tree felt like it was watching me. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting that Jeep to appear behind me again. My mind wouldn't shut up. I started thinking about that list: fire, chaos, obsession. It didn't sound like cheating. It sounded like someone planning a reinvention. Or a breakdown. Or both. When I pulled into our driveway, something was wrong. The porch light was on. It was only 5 in the afternoon. Tess never turns it on unless she's expecting someone. Her car wasn't there. But the light made my stomach twist. I walked up the steps and found the front door unlocked. Not just unlocked, wide open. Not kicked in, not broken. Just quietly open, like an invitation. I stepped inside and immediately noticed the air. It smelled different. Like citrus cleaner and something else, something metallic. I called out her name. Nothing. I moved through the living room slowly, looking for any sign she'd come home early. The TV was on, frozen on a paused YouTube video. A yoga tutorial. Volume muted. Then I saw it. On the kitchen counter, beside her car keys and sunglasses, was the green toothbrush. The same one I found in her car. Exactly the same. Down to the bent bristle at the tip and the dried smear of toothpaste near the neck. I hadn't brought it with me. I left it on the passenger seat. And now it was here. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at it. Time got weird. My thoughts were sliding all over the place, none of them sticking. Then I noticed something else. Her journal was back too. The same one from the cabin. Sitting on the dining table, like it never left. I opened it. The list was gone. So was the torn page. Instead, a new page had been written in thick, heavy ink. One sentence, dead center. You never asked what my rules were. I backed away. I didn't feel alone anymore. Every part of my body was telling me to leave, to get out of the house, but I didn't. I went upstairs, stupidly thinking maybe she was in the shower, maybe this was some sick misunderstanding. But the house was empty. Completely. No Tess. No bags. No sound. But when I checked my phone again, a new message was waiting for me. You need to leave the house. Now. It was from an unknown number. And it wasn't Tess. I didn't leave the house. Not immediately. That's probably where I messed up. Maybe the smart thing, the safe thing, would have been to trust the warning and go. But I didn't. I stood in the middle of my kitchen like an idiot, reading that message over and over, trying to make it make sense. The number wasn't saved. Area code from a state we'd never even visited. It didn't say who it was from. It didn't even follow up. Just that one sentence. You need to leave the house. Now. The silence around me was so loud. I swear I could hear my heartbeat echoing off the fridge. The sun was setting fast outside, and shadows were spilling into the corners of the room like spilled ink. I walked to the window, thinking maybe someone was parked outside, maybe this was a prank, or worse, maybe I was being watched. But the street was empty. Not a single car. Just the wind tossing around a trash bin someone had forgotten to bring in. I walked through the house slowly, methodically, trying to make sense of things. Everything looked normal, but that only made it worse. There were no broken windows, no signs of forced entry, no missing items. But it all felt arranged, like someone had reset the house to a default version of itself. The green toothbrush, the journal, the muted yoga video, all these things sitting perfectly in place, but slightly off. I couldn't explain it. It felt like walking through a memory instead of a home. And then I found the note. It was taped to the inside of my bedroom closet door. Just a plain white envelope. No name, no writing, sealed. But I knew. Somehow. I wasn't supposed to find it yet. It hadn't been there this morning. I check that closet every day. I open it automatically without thinking. And yet, this envelope had somehow waited until now. I opened it carefully, not because I was afraid of what was inside, but because something about it felt intimate, deliberate. There was a single piece of paper folded twice. No greeting. No signature. Just one typed sentence, centered on the page. You've been watching the wrong person. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. What the hell did that mean? I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the note, trying to retrace everything. Tess, the cabin, Micah, the Jeep, the journal. Was this about her? Or was it about me? And then another thought hit me, and this one landed harder. What if it wasn't Tess who planned all this? What if she's just a piece of it? I went back downstairs, hands trembling, trying to convince myself I was overthinking. I needed air. I needed to leave like the message said. But as I opened the front door, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. New message. Too late. That was it. No explanation. Just those two words. Outside, at the very end of the street, headlights flipped on. I hadn't seen the car there before. And it didn't move. I didn't move. I just stood there in the doorway, half inside, half out, staring down the street at those headlights. They weren't moving. The car didn't inch forward or honk or flash. It just sat there, completely still, engine running, lights cutting through the dark like a silent threat. I couldn't even make out who was inside. Just two vague shapes behind the glass. It could have been anyone. It could have been no one. But the worst part was, somehow, I knew they were watching me. Not just in the casual, passing by way. I mean watching, like they were waiting to see what I'd do next. I backed into the house slowly and shut the door. I didn't lock it. I don't know why. I just didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing I was scared. My heart was racing, and I could hear my breath, loud and ragged in the quiet. I walked back through the living room, and suddenly became hyper-aware of every little detail. The paused yoga video on the TV had changed. The screen was now black. Still muted, still paused, but no longer a yoga tutorial. It looked like the frame of a hallway I recognized. It was ours. I grabbed the remote and hit play. The video resumed for half a second, just enough for me to see myself, walking past the camera, in this very house, wearing the same hoodie I had on now. Then the screen glitched and froze again. I turned off the TV. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This wasn't about Tess, or Micah, or some emotional spiral. Something else was happening, and I was in the middle of it without even knowing when it started. I pulled open every drawer in the house. Checked the cameras, nothing. Checked the Wi-Fi settings, unchanged. The only thing that had changed was me. The front door slammed. I froze. I hadn't locked it. I know I hadn't, but I definitely hadn't closed it either. The house went completely silent again, but now it was a different kind of silence, one that felt occupied. I stepped into the hallway and called out, "Who's there?" No answer. I looked at my phone, ready to call the police, but the screen was black. Dead. The battery had been at 60% 10 minutes ago. Now it wouldn't even power on. I walked back toward the door, careful, slow, every floorboard sounding too loud beneath me. When I reached the entryway, it was empty. No one there. I stepped outside. The street was now completely dark. The car with the headlights was gone, like it had never been there. I turned back toward the house, and that's when I saw it. The green toothbrush, back in the console of my own car. It was upright this time, propped like a flag. The exact same one I'd left behind at the cabin, then saw on the kitchen counter, now somehow back in its original place. I opened the car door and found something new tucked beside it, a photograph. A printed Polaroid. Tess, standing in front of cabin number 4, smiling, looking straight into the camera. And behind her, through the cabin window, was me. Except I had never been there with her. I stared at that Polaroid for a long time before I touched it. The glossy surface looked fresh, like it had just been printed, still warm from the machine, edges clean. Tess stood in the foreground, arms folded across her chest, wearing the same fleece hoodie she left in, hair tied back like she always does when she's trying not to cry. She was smiling, but not for the camera. It was the kind of smile you give someone just off frame. Someone you trust. Someone you love. And then there was the window behind her. And inside it me. Same hoodie. Same posture. My face caught mid-turn, looking straight toward the lens. But I had never stood in that cabin. Never posed in that frame. Never been behind Tess in that moment. And yet there I was, frozen in time, staring directly into proof that I had either lost my mind or someone had rebuilt it without telling me. I didn't go back into the house. I couldn't. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt staged, hollow, like a replica of a place I used to live. I drove. No destination, no plan. I just needed the car to move faster than my thoughts. My fingers were shaking against the steering wheel. Every red light felt like a trap. Every car behind me felt like a tail. I passed gas stations, diners, the high school football field, and none of it looked familiar anymore. It was like someone had taken my entire town and put it back together just slightly wrong. Eventually, I pulled into an empty church parking lot on the edge of town. I killed the engine and sat in silence. The air was thick. I could still smell the faint trace of her perfume on the passenger seat. Vanilla and something sharp underneath. I remembered when I used to love that smell. Now it made my throat tighten. I took out the Polaroid again, looked closer, and that's when I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In the bottom corner of the image, barely visible, there was a timestamp, printed like an old analog camcorder might do. July 12 to 3:16 a.m. July 12th. My birthday. 3 months ago. I tried to remember where I had been that night, but the memory was foggy. I think Tess made dinner. Or maybe I ordered in. I can't even be sure if we were home together. That whole week is blurry now, like a movie I watched through someone else's eyes. I pulled out my phone to check my gallery, see if I had taken any pictures that night, but it still wouldn't turn on. I tried to charge it in the car. Nothing. Then I saw the third thing. There was writing on the back of the Polaroid. For words, written in blue ink. You should remember this. Not do you remember. You should. Like it was an obligation. Like I was guilty of forgetting something important. And in that moment, something broke in me. Not panic, not rage, just this deep, hollow certainty that I was being rewritten. That my memories weren't mine. That Tess wasn't just gone or cheating or lying. She was building something behind my back. A new version of us. One I didn't belong in anymore. So I made the decision. I turned the car around and drove to the only person who ever warned me about her. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years, and the last time we did, he said something I laughed off at the time. She's not trying to hurt you, Garrett. She's trying to replace you. And I think he was right. I hadn't seen Owen in 2 years, but when I knocked on his door, he opened it like he'd been waiting the whole time. He looked older, rougher around the edges, but his eyes were still sharp, the same eyes that warned me back when I didn't want to hear it. We sat in his kitchen in silence for a while, the kind of silence that carries weight. Then I showed him the photo. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded slowly, like he recognized something I hadn't yet. Then he said, "I told you, Garrett. She doesn't destroy people. She redesigns them. Quietly. Patiently. And the worst part? You don't even know it's happening until you're already someone else." I wanted to argue, to say that was dramatic, but I couldn't. Because in that moment, something shifted. Not a memory exactly, more like a sensation. A ripple under the surface. Like something I had buried so deep it had stopped being conscious. I started asking myself real questions about things I'd brushed off. Like why I hadn't remembered my own birthday, or why whole chunks of this year felt foggy, almost out of order. Why I'd stopped journaling. Why I hadn't seen my own friends in months. Why Tess was always the one holding the calendar, making the plans, reminding me of conversations I didn't remember having. Owen handed me a flash drive. He said he'd copied some files years ago, videos from an old phone I'd lost, photos Tess had asked him to delete when we were moving. I plugged it into my laptop that night, back at home, and for the first time in months, things began to click. There was footage of me smiling, laughing, back when I still looked like myself. Not tired, not fogged over. I saw clips of us together where my expressions didn't match hers. She always looked directed, like she was playing a version of herself. But me? I looked real. And that's when I realized the truth wasn't buried in some grand conspiracy or hidden device. It was simpler than that. She had been gaslighting me, slowly, methodically, not to control me, but to erase the parts of me she couldn't love. The messy parts, the sensitive parts, the uncertain parts. And when that didn't work, she tried to replace them. Through isolation, mistruths, half reminders of things that never happened. Tess wasn't cheating on me with another person. She was cheating on me with a different version of me, one she was trying to create from the outside in. And I'd let her. But here's the part one didn't expect. I didn't break. Not fully. That flash drive was the mirror I didn't know I needed. The moment I saw myself before her edits, something came back. A confidence. A stubbornness. A voice in my head that hadn't spoken in a long time. It said, simply, "That's me." Right there. And I made a decision. I didn't call her. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. That part of my life was already over. Instead, I packed a small bag. I emailed my job a request for leave. I deleted every calendar entry she'd ever made. Then I drove 6 hours north to a cabin I booked, with no second guest listed, no plan to declutter my mind, and no green toothbrush in the glove box. Just me. Real me. No more fog. I watched the sunrise for the first time in what felt like years. And for once, I wasn't afraid to remember anything.